If you can tell we are not smiling, it's because we already recorded this and this mic wasn't on, so it's just a whole podcast of Jimmy, which is also cool. So this is take 2 of our quick podcast. We're gonna talk about what are we talking about, Jimmy?
Augustine and Aquinas are the two that we're discussing. And then, this is our CIT podcast, so I explained it a little bit more than just saying two authors. We're talking about if faith and reason are compatible, which is a question we've spent a lot of time on in class, and that we just want to explore a little further. We're going to talk a little bit about how it's seen through the lens of Augustine and Aquinas, a little bit about CIT in general, and then just kind of get into it. Do you want to start off? Faith and reason, are they compatible? What do you think?
So, faith and reason, we had this question in one of our CIT classes where it was a rapid fire question where it was just yes or no, is faith and reason compatible? And I remember my initial answer was yes, but I kind of changed that since then. Now I'm steady on a medium yes and no, because I am of the idea that for faith and reason to be fully compatible would mean we could explain all the supernatural, all that entails God within reason, which I don't think is fair. I end up agreeing with Aquinas, where God permits us to understand to a measure through our reason who he is and him, and he reveals himself. But a God that we could fully comprehend within reason wouldn't be a God worth worshiping, because he's fully comprehensible. Like, I might as well worship Jimmy. You feel me? So yeah, that's my take. What about you?
I find myself agreeing with you a lot there. I think similarly, I think my answer was originally yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like now it's still yes, but there's kind of an asterisk there.
Yeah.
I think that reason is fully contained within faith. I think reason, I would define it as like the human perspective on their own world, human understanding to the fullest extent possible of the world around us. Yeah. And I think that a lot of aspects of faith are beyond that understanding. I think that God has a different perspective. God is timeless. God is outside of human time and space. Has power that we would consider infinite, that we can't understand. Think about this being that not only created each of us, but knew each of us individually. That's far beyond anything that we can even fathom. So I think that reason kind of can't contain faith. Faith isn't something that can be completely understood, can't be analyzed down to the last detail, because like you said, then what are we worshiping? If we fully understand all of the divine mysteries, if it all makes sense to us, if it all is achievable in some way by us, then we're losing the idea of God. But I don't think that's possible. So I think reason makes sense within faith, but kind of faith is beyond reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very beautiful way to put it, and I think that will make sense to everybody. And even in reading Confessions, you can see Augustine. He's always in debate. He's always arguing and trying to comprehend the compatibility of his faith and his reason, because he's a philosopher. He's trying to reason. He's studied Plato. He's studied all this, and he's trying to formulate his own thesis on God, so to speak. And I think he finds a lot of value in the questions he asks. And like we read in the book of Job, God honors the questioner. Like, you have to really question and seek to understand. Like we spoke about in the podcast that we just lost, the value of seeking to understand from a question. Like, several times people will ask questions, I will ask questions, and when I'm getting an answer back, I'm just waiting their turn to speak. I'm not really like listening or asking the question with an intention of knowing what I'm seeking out. But that's not the approach that our author here takes. He just seeks to understand, seeks to know deeper, and I feel like he ends up with really solid answers to his questions.
I completely agree. I think that Augustine's questioning and his exploration of his theology through confessions
Yeah.
is insanely profound. And I know, like, I personally, I come from a background of a lot of like speech and debate. I did that a lot through like high school and middle school.
Yeah.
And there was this constant idea of asking leading questions, asking questions that you know the answer or you want someone to mess up, and you don't. There wasn't this like intellectual curiosity,
Yeah.
and that kind of made Augustine's exploration, Augustine's confession, even more profound for me because he clearly is not only is he really questioning and really interested in the topic, but he goes in with good faith. He wants to find an answer. He's not trying to ask gotcha questions. He's not trying to say, well, haha, this is why God can't be doing this or something like that. He's putting these questions out there into the universe, and they're real. Like, he bears his soul, and he's willing to find an answer, and that's just insane to me. And I would love for you to go more into Job because you did a great discussion of Job on the last podcast, which we lost, and that was just so profound.
Yeah. So we were talking about the book of Job, where Job, in the conclusion of the book, we see that God honors Job's honesty and his questioning, like, why is this happening to me, God? And Job's friends, who are the religious type, who we would imagine they're right, like, oh, Job, you have no authority, you have no place to be questioning God. God considers them as sinners, and they need to repent and turn from that. And it's fascinating because here we see that God really honors the questioner and the person that has the conflict, and I feel like that applies to this day.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, the book of Job is such a unique book of the Bible. And it's heartbreaking on one level because we watch like Job's life be destroyed, even though he's that faithful servant of God. But at the same time, his faith is very genuine. And I think that's what I got out of this idea of God saying that his questioning was good and that his friends need to repent, even though on surface level they would seem like they're the ones that are obeying God because they're just kind of blindly following. But I think the book of Job kind of raises the question of, is their belief as genuine as Job's? Because Job makes that effort to try and understand. He wants to see why God is doing this, what's the reason behind it, and his faith is being tested, but he remains faithful. He just needs that information and he looks for that information. Whereas Job's friends kind of just wave it away and they explain it away, the injustice of Job's situation and the issues that Job is facing, and just tell him to obey. Where Job really questions and he thinks about his faith, and I think that that's a lot of what is explored in Augustine's Confessions. That idea of the positive role of questioning in faith, how questioning we often equate, at least I've found, with doubt.
Yeah.
And doubt is an enemy of faith. And I think that Augustine and Job and a lot of our discussion in class has pointed that questioning can also strengthen faith, and questioning can develop our faith. And it's not a negative, it's kind of an aspect of life when living a faith-based life is questioning.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's fascinating to see it's only through those difficult moments and those difficult questions that people's faith really gets to blossom and you get to really live it out. And I bet even you, or like we were talking about earlier, like through your life, faith is very experiential, it's like how far you've lived, what have you've experienced, and these things sort of shape us and they shape our faith. And so having those moments where you can be like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and you want to ask those questions, like you said perfectly, it's just something that will end up strengthening your faith even more, and it's just beautiful to see.
I completely agree with that. I think that that's some of the value that our CIT classes had. Just in general, it's given us kind of this open space to ask those tough questions that otherwise we really wouldn't get that opportunity to ask in our everyday lives. It's tough to segue into Aquinas or any of the other great authors and writers that we've read, or even just have a deep discussion about the Bible with some of our friends otherwise. And CIT really opens that up and gives us this space to go into deep philosophical discussions with our peers and with Dr. King, that I know that for me have really shaped my perspective on a lot of things, where I kind of went into the class unsure about certain issues or just reversed my stances on things through hearing the perspectives of my classmates, because there's so many different views on different topics, and kind of gaining that understanding, which I think is central to faith.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when people approach this specific class with the sort of attitude we've seen in our class, where everybody's just an active participant, there's no room for like any voice to be silenced, and just everybody has a chance to really articulate themselves. And because a lot of people's contribution is very real to them, like they share a lot of lived experiences, and we can see how their faith or lack thereof impacted how they went about stuff. And it's such an amazing class to have people that can really openly share. Like, it's not every day that you get to talk about Aquinas when you play FIFA or Madden or 2K with your friends. So it has really opened up a place for like intellectual conversations on faith, on the Catholic intellectual tradition. I personally have learned a lot about the Catholic tradition from this class, and it's just fascinating. Like, a lot of the beliefs and a lot of the ideas held within Orthodoxy, Catholicism, Protestantism that we get to discuss in this class. And I just felt at the end of the day, this is sort of the most important discussion to ever have, because what else matters genuinely when it all comes to an end? Like, nobody's going to care about a finance degree when on their 80th, maybe 90th birthday, maybe on a deathbed. This is really what matters.
Absolutely.
Like, who is God and what is God? So having this class just explore that in a very calm, understanding, has just been a breath of fresh air to me.
I completely agree. I know, like, something that we talked about earlier is this idea that I know, at least for me, I went into the class in kind of a period of limbo. Just a little background. I had grown up Protestant for all my life, until recently my family, especially my dad, has converted to Eastern Orthodoxy. And then I've also spent all my life in Catholic school, surrounded by Catholic friends, and I work at a Catholic church over the summer. So I've had a lot of different, like, versions of Christianity in my life. And right at the beginning of this year was kind of the time where I was thinking, I really don't know where to go from here. I don't know what the path forward is. I don't know what the correct path is. I know that I'm a Christian, but I don't know where to go. And I think CIT, I mean, not that I've become like absolutely certain about everything, but CIT has given me that space to explore crazy topics and topics that I wouldn't have even thought of faith. And it's allowed me the opportunity to expand my perspective and really understand my own faith to a greater degree, and also the value of all the other people in our class and the perspectives that they bring, and how that helps as well. And it's really been just a great experience.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because one of the readers, I just had a quote pulled up that Augustine writes in Confessions. He says, and apparently it's one of his most famous lines, and it talks about how you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. And it's such a crazy read to just see that, you know, we get to have this discussion in CIT. You get to see all this. It's a melting pot of all these different Christian beliefs and denominations, if we want to call them that. And we get to explore what truly matters, if God has made us for himself and we are restless, these are the questions that need answers. Like, most of all, like, you want to figure out your identity in your faith. You want to know God, who he is, who he isn't. And this class sort of provides that space that you can talk about this, you can explore this, you can think critically and deeply. Sometimes I'm in that class and I I don't know if it's, I don't want to call it anything that hasn't been diagnosed yet, but I always wander off in every class, but never in CIT. Maybe it's due to the structure of the discussion, where if I'm not participating, I'm listening, and if I'm not listening, I'm thinking deeply about, okay, how do you encounter that? Sometimes somebody will pose a question that will be like, oh wow, I had never really thought of it like that. Like, shout out Hillary, who like always comes up with some
She always has
fast,
great questions.
yeah, like her questions are like, oh wow, I never heard it phrased like that. And it's like, it's wonderful because you get to really learn. Like, it's mentally stimulating as well as important, because it's really, to me, and I bet to you, it's a very important thing to learn about what we're discussing in this class.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all of our readings, I think I've loved. They've all been so interesting. Out of my favorites, I think Plato talking about like the allegory of the cave.
Oh, the cave.
That was like great. I loved that. I loved that idea of it's like kind of perspective.
Yeah.
It's how you view the world can limit you. And then also Augustine's Confessions that we're talking about.
Yeah.
What a beautiful exploration of learning and of faith. I mean, so many profound questions, and Augustine just, I mean, I know I talked about this earlier, but it's just marvelous to me that he goes out looking for that honest answer and willing to accept it.
Yeah.
And he's willing to be critical of himself in the past and explore his dedication to God and all the things it's brought him and his own path. And to show the fact, it's clear that he understands the fact that he doesn't know. He doesn't know the answer to all these things, but he still has honest intellectual curiosity about it. I think is just beautiful, and what an amazing like book to read for a class. I probably shouldn't say this, but for a lot of my classes, I don't do the reading, and I always do the reading for CIT because we always read something that's always so cool, that has so many good ideas.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Like, you end up just impressed by, this is somebody who lived in like 400 years after Christ, and it's like, this is 1600-year-old philosophy, but it's so relevant today, and it makes perfect sense how he formulates his ideas in this work. It's just a masterclass on philosophical writing, and I just hope to one day be able to articulate myself like that, like somebody did in 1600 years
Honestly.
ago. Because he really gets to explore his faith, and he really seeks and finds a lot of the answers that he seeks, and he's comfortable with the unknown. Like, he's
What a great experience with CIT. Semester 1, excited for semester 2.
and Dingle.
And Dingle.
Yo, that's gonna be a time. I've never been. Have you
Absolutely.
been to?
I have been to Ireland. I went when I was like 8 years old, and I
That
loved
doesn't
it.
count. That
Doesn't
doesn't count. Doesn't count. He's gonna go to Dingle now as an adult and remember it. Yeah,
It's
fun.
exciting.
So we're gonna cut. Don't miss us too much. We'll be back with another episode someday.
Soon.